Today we want to explore a little bit more around what's going on with XRP and also vaults that could be playing into the equation. It's going to be a good one. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into the show. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is Gemini. And guess what? You guys can actually engage with an XRP credit card over on Gemini right now. Meet the XRP edition. It works just like the other credit cards that are within the Gemini platform. This works in conjunction with the Gemini trading app. So it's very dialed in, and of course the way to get it is just use our link down below. It's going to give you guys an opportunity to get not only 4% cash back on some of your purchases, gas, EV, and transit, but it also goes into dining, groceries, all that good stuff. And this is direct XRP as an asset right into the card itself. So it goes right into your traditional exchange account, and you can also get a bonus of up to 200 XRP just by going through the whole process, which is where if you spend up to $3,000 over a period of 90 days, they're going to give you another 200 bucks as well. This is a MasterCard World Elite. Check it out below. It always helps the channel. All right, so I wanted to bring in Hugo Philion, who is the CEO of Flare. You guys have probably heard us talk about this before, but Hugo, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me.
Excellent. So obviously our topic today is to really dive in a little bit on vaults. Vaults, for many of you that are maybe brand new to crypto, are a place where you can start to inject capital and earn what has been pretty high performing yields, and we'll explain how that actually works. But Hugo, I'm looking at Firelight right now. Give me a little bit of an update of where you guys are with Firelight. Give me kind of a rundown.
Absolutely. So Firelight is an application built on Flare by our partners at Centaur. We put out a call for projects to build a staking application for what we call FXRP, which is XRP that has been moved to Flare. Flare is its own layer one. And Firelight is that staking application, and we've partnered with them, and they're a very well-known data and kind of investment manager in the DeFi space. And this is their first application that they're building token, because the opportunity in XRP staking and the opportunity to transform XRP from an asset for transaction fees on the XRP ledger into a more widely used asset is absolutely huge. So Firelight are in the process of, I know they've had one audit. They're doing an education process at the moment. They're waiting for us to launch FXRP, which we should be in September. And then they will be launching soon after we've launched FXRP on Flare. So as I said, Flare is its own layer one. We can get into that a bit later and why it exists and what its plans are. But Flare is very much around, its first product is very much around bringing utility to XRP and other assets that don't have smart contracts, which are the majority of the value in the space, and bringing utility to those assets and allowing them to be used in DeFi and really quite exotic use cases.
Now, you're talking about this launching in September. Obviously, we'll probably see some significant flow into this platform. When you look at the size of crypto in general, obviously the XRP army out there does a pretty good job at kind of influencing where some of these market expansions are, obviously with XRP, which has not had a lot of opportunities like this. So this could be kind of the go-to place. How secure do you feel like Firelight will be? Explain to me a little bit more about maybe the security side of what Firelight would look like.
Yeah, so let's, I guess, step back and first of all think about what Firelight is doing. Firelight has two main things. You stake your FXRP, which is known as Flare XRP, into Firelight, and you can stake it to, I guess, multiple different pools. And these are different ESSs, economically secured services. So some of those ESSs can be conventional, like restaked services similar to things like EigenLayer, such as a market for blockchain security.
Okay.
I want to secure a proof of stake based system. I would like to be able to grow that security very quickly, and I can harness XRP to do that. The market for stake security exists, but is unlikely to expand at a rapid pace. And so we've been working with Firelight, and they have this concept of economically secured services. So this is more about putting your XRP to work in more conventional economic ways. So really the first major product that will come onto Firelight is effectively your XRP acts as an insurance pool against extremely low risk protocols like RFA potentially, where they've been battle tested for over 5 years. They have multiple billions of capital in them. You're taking second, in most cases, I would imagine second loss risk, not first loss, absolutely critical. But you get paid for providing that insurance. Now, of course, with reward comes risk. You can't have one without the other.
Sure.
But the idea of economically secured services is that they broadly mirror in terms of the risk that you're taking conventional staking. So we're not talking about, an economically secured service where you're buying deep out of the money calls. That is not a comparable risk to staking. This is places where this is things where you have very, very low risk of getting hit, as in taking a loss, and your loss is contained and subscribed. And so this is the concept of economically secured services. The first place that really works is insurance. The second place that probably works is real world asset liquidity on chain. If you know much about the real world asset market in crypto, you'll know that it's not the most liquid market. You'll also know that it's less liquid at the weekend. Because conventional markets are closed. And so there's a whole concept around how we bootstrap RWA liquidity, and economically secured services are a very good option for that.
Because that's one of the things when I look at vaults, when we're analyzing a lot of these vaults right now, and we're testing quite a few of them, many times I look at it and I feel like the risk level is a little bit high. And I immediately, for me, I'm a little bit less tolerant of risk, and will try to find some opportunities out there that still have great benefits, but not necessarily as much carrying as much risk. So I liked what you're saying there.
So we wanted to be very careful here with Firelight, with the whole concept of staking XRP. I've seen a lot of the products out there, and they're very market based. They're very much about, okay, someone puts their XRP in. And then you get some traders who are running the vault who go and effectively put positions on centralized exchanges. Whether they have negotiated with that centralized exchange to hold those assets off the balance sheet of the centralized exchange, because if you're big enough, you can do that. You can effectively be insured against a bankruptcy of that centralized exchange. That's how many of the large players in the industry reduce their risk. But I don't think the major vaults in this space, especially XRP vaults, are doing that. And I also think fundamentally it's important that people understand the risk they're taking. And I think that the vault structure needs to be very clear what this, I guess you might call it, staked XRP is being used for. I wouldn't really call the existing XRP staking sort of similar to staking, because it's a totally different risk category. What we wanted to do with Firelight was do something that was really as close to staking in the conventional sense as possible.
I'm looking at the diagram here, bringing it across from XRP into an F asset. Obviously, it goes into FXRP, into Firelight. Now we have staked XRP. What about the DEXs, lending protocols, even yield markets? Are those going to be out there?
That's the interesting thing. So those exist already on Flare. Once you put your FXRP into Firelight, you receive the staked XRP, not Firelight. That's absolutely critical, right?
Yep.
So then you've got your XRP in Firelight earning a return. You then have this staked XRP, which is a liquid representation of your stake. It has value, which should be almost identical to the XRP that you have put in, because the risk of staking Firelight is low. And then you can then use it on a DEX or in a lending protocol. So, let's say you wish to derive further yield from your XRP. You have staked it in Firelight, you now have staked XRP. You can now take it to a lending protocol and borrow dollars against it. You can then lend those dollars out and for a yield. So that allows you to transform your XRP from a non-yielding asset to an asset that derives yield from at least two sources. And that's kind of the concept behind why we wanted to liquid staking protocol that then lets you do more with your XRP.
That's fantastic, because I think that is, well, first of all, gives you a lot of flexibility with your XRP, and I think really starts to kind of ramp up the opportunities you have in terms of getting more yield. With that being said, as you start to move forward with Flare, and I wanted to kind of hit on Vivo, because we are seeing some of these DAT companies, digital asset treasury companies out there, obviously Vivo being one of them, but you guys are doing something specific around yield generation. Can you talk about that?
So one of the most important aspects of a DAT company is you want to be able to grow your stake in the network. Let's say in this instance, it's XRP. You don't want to have to keep raising money in order to increase your position. You know, you raise money when your equity value is higher than your net asset value. There's lots of routes to do it, but largely a lot of people have done offerings when their equity value is higher than their net asset value. But an alternative way to do it is if you have an asset that yields, you can convert that yield back into the currency of your choice. You know, if you've got XRP and you can derive, let's say, 8%, then your treasury, your balance is increasing at 8% per year, which is a very good way to do it. So we were talking with Vivo Power. They like what Flare is doing. They like what Firelight is doing. They like our downstream DeFi ecosystem from staking. You know, they decided to commit $100 million of XRP to the Flare ecosystem.
So do you feel like this is going to be one of the tool sets that institutional capital could come in and say, hey, this is a great example of how XRP can be put to work? Do you anticipate more companies kind of joining what Vivo is doing and starting to use Flare as the outlet?
Absolutely. Okay. You know, we think that one of the larger sort of opportunities for Flare in the space is digital asset treasury companies like Vivo that hold XRP, and there are a few, but Vivo's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, but exchanges as well, because I think around 80% of people that hold XRP are holding their XRP on an exchange. And exchanges want to be able to offer their customers a way to get yield on the tokens they're holding. So, you know, really our focus in business development around the DeFi ecosystem for XRP on Flare and for Firelight has been around courting exchanges. And then, of course, having other types of vaults, not Firelight. So one of the things that's quite nice and a huge differentiator between the vaults that currently exist on XRP and the vaults that can exist on a smart contract chain like Flare is that the vaults for XRP naturally go and get their economic exposure through a centralized exchange. The problem with that is they have a counterparty risk. They have a counterparty risk with that centralized exchange, meaning if that centralized exchange goes bankrupt, then the money that that vault provider has put on that centralized exchange may be lost. And that's rather unpleasant, and we've seen that before. In fact, we've seen it many times in our industry. One of the things about vaults with regards to Flare DeFi, and there will be vault offerings for Flare DeFi specifically that are separate from Firelight. One of the things about vaults that can use Flare DeFi is those strategies can be carried out entirely on chain, and therefore you don't have the same exposure to the credit of the exchange. And this means that you're using a DEX, an on-chain lending protocol, an on-chain burst protocol. And so whilst there is still economic risk with regards to the markets, the price risk or liquidation risk, you don't have the same risk, counterparty risk. And this is quite nice relative to the vaults that currently exist on XRP.
Is there any model in which this could work with some of the lending platforms out there? Because you have lending platforms now starting to propagate, many of which have talked about putting XRP as an asset class within their loan structure. Is there a way to somehow integrate what Flare is doing for active loans, something like a Morpho or a Salt?
Absolutely. So we've been talking to a lot of the Morpho-like entities, and you know, they're very keen on coming to the Flare ecosystem.
Interesting. That's intriguing to me.
I'd also say that you know, more classic TradFi loan companies. You know, are also very interested because they hold large amounts of XRP, and they want to be able to effectively get more XRP. They
Why wouldn't they?
To compete in that market. And you know, if they can get yield out of that, that's a good
fantastic.
For them.
Well, I think this is going to really start to advance what's happening in the vault business, especially because it's still very early and there's a lot of new products out there. You know, we were looking at Doppler Finance. Good example, you know, in terms of their XRP vault. Will this be, do you know, and we haven't seen any numbers yet coming out of what we've seen with Firelight, but do you think this is going to be competitive with some of the other vaults that are out there in the market?
Oh, I definitely think it'd be competitive. But of course, all return relates to risk, ultimately.
Yeah.
The more risk you take, the higher return you will get.
Yeah.
But I do think it will be competitive. I think it would be a little better in terms of returns for the same level of risk. Really, what you want to get is the highest return for the risk you're taking.
Well, and if you look at what Persist, of course, this is kind of the one that everybody's comparing against. This is obviously on the EVM sidechain.
Why would people come to Flare and Firelight versus Persist?
Exactly, yes.
Well, I think one of the things that is very interesting from simply a competition perspective is that Flare has built Flare by itself almost entirely. We raised the financing for it, we built the team, and we've always been agile in that sense. We've always been very big supporters of XRP. In fact, we airdropped our token to the XRP holders. That has enabled us to take a different view on how markets work. With respect to the Persist team, they are an employed team. They're an external contractor. And I just frankly don't believe that an external contractor can ever really have as much skin in the game as a huge entrepreneurial team. And I think really the testament to that is that, Firelight chose to launch on Flare, didn't choose to launch on the Persist XRP EVM sidechain. And that's because Flare understands better what is needed in the market because we have a lot more to lose.
Well, yeah, usually when you have that much skin in the game, it does change your perspective on things for sure. In terms of yield products, will we see most of the new products coming out on Firelight in the beginning, or will they phase in products as they grow?
I think they'll phase in products, have a multi-year planning cycle. Obviously, you can see how the market takes the first product, which is broadly going to be insurance. But once you've got that, there's multiple other use cases. Again, each thing you talk about is an entire market that has to be built, developed, fleshed out, and optimized. So I think there's going to be multiple expansions of Firelight over a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. Hugo, how much DeFi do you think is going, with the DeFi ecosystem within XRP now starting to expand, how much do you think is going to be unlocked just this year, in the last few months of this year?
I mean, I'd like to see Flare at 5 billion XRP by mid-2026. Don't know about the last period of this year. Market's a bit volatile, but I'd like to see Flare at 5 billion XRP.
5 billion.
In the middle of 2026.
I mean, what are you seeing out there? What are you hearing people saying, hey, I'm going to deploy 50% of my assets into platforms like this, 20% of my assets? What's a good balance there? Because for me, I've been looking at a variety of vaults and trying to diversify within them. What do you think is the best?
So I think it entirely depends on your personal circumstances, what your portfolio looks like, what your holdings look like. When a product is new, I would always be a little more careful. Probably, wouldn't go above 25% of my assets. As I start to understand the product and as the product proves out its capabilities and also its safety, if I was inclined to do so, I would increase my sizing.
Yeah, just feather in. Well, I think this is one of those things, always test, verify, try all these different platforms out there, even though you should be doing your research on each one of them individually, but I'm always concerned about centralizing too much of an asset bag in one area, so I'm always looking for additional opportunities out there.
I think there's a fundamental difference between a vault, where someone has the right to use that token, and that person is the manager of the vault, and a protocol, which is fully decentralized.
Yeah,
I would feel more comfortable putting my money in a protocol where that money can't just be used however that protocol, however the vault manager wishes. I would be more comfortable putting my money in a decentralized protocol that can only use the money in ways prescribed by the smart contract.
Right,
absolutely
yeah, for
critical.
Sure. Yeah, very critical. And I think that's something that, one, kudos to you guys for bringing this to market, because I think that is one of the uniqueness elements that you guys have kind of dialed in here. So, Hugo, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you so much. We're going to be watching this closely as you launch, and then we'll be testing it. We'll check it out. We'll talk about it probably on the show here Of course, thanks again for
Dude,
coming in. We appreciate it.
my pleasure. Thank you.
You bet. All right, guys, if you're not part of our Diamond Circle, get in right now. It's a great place to get additional content. Use the link down below. It's very easy to join, and it's free. It's very easy to set up for you guys. And of course, follow me out there on X at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on The Paul Barron Show.